for you, you were explaining as you were in high school and you were coming to that moment, deciding what your next steps are. Right now, your senior year. Really, let's jump to you're graduating, and now it's time for college. Right now, it's time to take that next step forward, the next chapter. What happened? What did you end up going into the major of communications? What were those next steps?
No, I didn't. I was going to. I had made up my mind that I was going to go to secular school. And now let me put it this way: I was going to go to secular school, but I was still going to go to Indiana Bible College as like a part-time deal, just kind of get my feet under me. Because I'm probably going to say this multiple times, just because, being a man of God does not necessarily mean that you're behind the pulpit, right? So God didn't call us all to a pulpit ministry, but he did call all of us to be children of God, which means you minister in every aspect. So in that mindset, when I was about to go to school, I was thinking like, okay, like I still want a foundation, so I'll dual credit. I'll go to IBC just to get my foundational doctrine so that I can survive on a college campus and have the right mindset in whatever career path I go out. I still want to work for God. I want to do things for God.
Right.
Then I'm going to go to secular school for communications. And it came down to a point where it was, and I'm going to admit something, and people are probably going to be like, whoa. But like I got down to the end of my senior year, my parents were like, hey, if you really want to go to college, you're probably going to have to take your SATs, right? And I don't know why, but there's something in me that was avoiding it. And even like putting apps out for colleges, there was something about me like I was, and naturally I was like avoiding it. I don't know why, like that's what I wanted to do, right? You'd think if that's really what you wanted to do, you'd be jumped at the chance to like try to get into the school you want to get into and all that type of stuff. And I was just like avoiding it, and I don't know why. And it came down, I'll never forget, I was in my parents' room, I was sitting in a chair, and they were asking me, they said, hey, look, you're a senior in high school now, so you're going to have to figure out what you're doing here. You're going to have to figure out how this is moving. And they said, so you're going to have to make some decisions here pretty soon. And I'll never forget, I just broke down and I started sobbing, because that was the first moment I realized, like, no, I know I'm called to ministry, and I've kind of been running from it because I've had a chip on my shoulder. Right. And I'm trying to be so careful not doing it for the wrong reasons, but it really hit me in that point. And I told my mom and dad, they were saying, like, why? And I said, because I felt like any time I was doing anything worthwhile, or the only time I felt like I was helping people or doing anything that was of worth, was not when I was making videos. It wasn't when I was really doing art. Those things were nice. I enjoyed them. They were hobbies.
Right.
I never felt fulfilled in my life doing that. Like, can I do that literally for the rest of my life? And it hit me, the only time I felt like I was making that choice and that fulfilling choice to work for people was when I was operating in a ministry role. And so I decided to go to full-time IBC.
And so just before we jump into that following chapter now, that moment when you broke down, that moment when you just opened up completely and you just accepted what you were feeling from God, I mean, what were the thoughts really running through your mind at that moment? Because that is a big moment. And for anyone out there that is listening and that is struggling with God's calling over their life, or maybe scared, right? Because I know that some people don't accept it because they're afraid of failure, right? And you and I have spoken about how, God doesn't call the qualified, right? He just wants willing heart and willing hands, and listen, he's going to do the rest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say what was going through my mind was, first of all, I was just terrified. This is about your future, right? And you want to make the right choice. You want to make the right decision. But I knew what I was feeling, and the thought that, like I just said, the thought that just kept running through my head was, the only times
right
that you've ever felt like you were making a difference was when you were speaking with people and you were doing some type of formal speaking, which in my mind, I was still trying to struggle with calling that preaching, but it was like when you're speaking in front of people, you felt like you were making a difference. And when I was either helping lead worship or singing, and it was operating in ministry fashions, they were like, that's when you feel the most fulfilled. It feels like when you're making a difference,
Right.
And so I was really holding on to that, saying like, okay, like that gives you more fulfillment. You feel like you're doing something that matters when you're doing that, not when you're doing art. Do you feel like you're doing something because you're going to be passionate about what you're called to, right?
Right.
So a doctor, like, I don't know, I keep throwing this out, but I'm just kind of painting with broad strokes. Whatever, this doesn't have to be a doctor. Like, not doctors aren't the only who are passionate about their craft. I'm talking about anything.
Yeah.
Like, be a carpenter and passionate about your craft, but that's what you're passionate about, right? That's what you do. And some people get a job and that's just their job, but like usually you can tell like, no, this is the career. Like when you're thinking about college, like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. This is where I want to go. And I realized that that's where that feeling of fulfillment was there. And I think the reason I broke down was because I'd been really fighting it for a long time. Because, when I was a kid, I had like 100 different things I wanted to be. I like grew up and I was like, I want to be a paleontologist. I want to be an archaeologist. I want to find all the dinosaurs. And I was a complete nerd. And then I realized that's not what I wanted to do. It took me like a week. And then I was like, oh no, I want to be an astronaut. Mm-hmm. And I was like, as like a little kid, you're always changing your career choice. But like every little hobby or little thing I was interested in, that's what I wanted to do. But it was weird. I always had this little thing in the back of my head. It's like I told my mom, I was like, oh, I want to be an astronaut. And she always teased me. She said, but then you'd say, well, I guess if I was an astronaut, I would have to be a preacher too. Because, even the aliens need to be saved. And all that type of stuff. It was just like, yeah. There was always this thing in the back of my mind. I knew God had that for me. But I just couldn't admit it because I was scared I would do it for the wrong reasons. Mm-hmm. And it was until I had that moment where I realized the reason you want to do this is not because of dad, is not because of your grandfather. It's because this is where God is using you. This is where you feel like you're being used for his kingdom. And that's kind of what helped me make that decision.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. And for everyone out there that's listening, right, this is the goal of the show, right? We want to encourage every single person out there to embrace that calling. But of course, right, we understand that everyone has their own journey, right, their own story with the Lord. But that this story, right, your story today, Georgeon, can reach everyone out there and just say, it's really on your own terms and your own time with the Lord. But once you accept that and you start to allow him to show you all the great things that he can do, no matter how small you think you are, no matter how little impact you think you can make, wherever he leads you, you can make that difference. And of course, right, this is what you're talking about, right, Jordan, that no matter the career that you choose and the passion you choose, you're still a preacher at the end of the day. You're still a Christian. You're still called to be a child of God. You're still called to win souls. And the first thing that comes to my mind when we started talking was Andrew, Peter's brother. I don't know if you remember, a couple different times the scriptures would show every time, for the most part, Andrew would come see the Lord, he would bring a friend. And I thought about that. I'm like, that's really what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're still making an impact. Now, the Bible doesn't talk much about Andrew. It doesn't, we see more about Peter and Paul and but not much of Andrew. But when you do read about Andrew, it's he's bringing a friend, right? So we always have to continue to be sharing the gospel, making that impact. So that's awesome, man. I'm so it's so awesome to hear your own personal story, how God dealt with you and how you made that choice. So. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the show today. If you enjoyed it, make sure to follow us and subscribe so you can stay up to date with the newest episodes, and follow us on all social media platforms, so check out the links below.